Okay, welcome. Barbara Battisti. I'm calling from St. Petersburg, Florida, and I'm just so happy and privileged to have Ben Woodward as my guest speaker today. Let's do this really quickly. There we go. And Ben, amazing. I just want you to share how your book actually came to be, or how it just, yeah, how it all, I mean, the how what empowerment is for you and how it all came to be, because I think that's what you're all about too. So
Cool, thank you very much. Well, how it came to be is a great desire to get published. For a long time, I've always wanted to get published and write a book. I actually began when I joined NICAN back in 2011. At the same time that I joined NICAN, I began in my spare time an English degree. So it took me 5 years to complete. It was a degree in English literature and language, which I did part-time. My reasoning was that I could do it was I traveled so much in my work, and I had so many nights by myself in hotel rooms that maybe I could put that time to good use and study. Of course, it's not quite as straightforward as that, because we have lots of evening meetings and evening events, and turns out that I didn't have much time when I traveled at all. But we made it work anyway, and it was a great experience. So that certainly played a part in helping me follow through and get this goal and ambition of mine done. But the dream began before then. I'd already written, I think, about 20,000 words on my initial book, which is nothing like the one that we've got now. But I paused it when I did my English degree, because I thought, if I'm going to be learning about creative writing and some of the skills of what good books look like, I'm going to pause now before I have to rewrite what I've already done. So it was actually a long process coming. It's been over the course of many years that I prepared, just through education, through learning, through practice, and what have you, and through a love of the art of writing. It's a personal passion of mine. I think a lot of people in their spare time, if they like to play golf, or they like to play tennis, or they like to run, or they like to do other things, I kind of like to sit in front of my desk and write. It's something that I enjoy doing. So that's been an interest of mine for a long
let's
time.
take a segue, because empowerment, I mean, Ben, that's who you are. That's how I know you to be. And, we've known each other several years and have worked together, different aspects of it, but how amazing. But it's been your whole life. So, I mean, do you want to touch on how that started in the very beginning, or?
Sure, yeah. It's out of necessity, brutal necessity, I would add. Yeah. So at the age of 22, in a very impulsive moment, I decided, after a conversation with my brother-in-law, that I was going to seize the moment that I had in life at this present time, and I was going to fly over from New Zealand to the UK, and catch up with family that I hadn't seen in a very long time. My father lived over there. I hadn't seen him since I was 14. So that's a long time to be separated from a parent, 14 to 22. I flew over on a one-way ticket. That's all I could afford. And I had 50 pounds in my pocket. And I figured, well, I'll move in with my dad. I'll have a great overseas experience. That's very common for Kiwis to do, go overseas for a little bit and do that. And then I'll work my way back home. That was my goal. A couple of weeks after arriving in the UK and moving in with my dad, literally a couple of weeks, I found out that he was guilty of some very serious, very offensive crimes that he should go to prison for.
Whoa.
And it wasn't one of these crimes where it left, there were no one else but him. It was, he left some victims behind in his wake. So I had a very I had a very serious question to ask myself in that situation. What do I do? You've got this unconditional love for a parent. You've got your natural dependence on them. I certainly was dependent on him at that point in time for food and shelter. I had, like I said, 50 pounds in my pocket. I was on the other side of the world from everyone that I'd grown up with, no means of getting home. What do you do? I made the very, very difficult decision to stand by the side of his victims and do what was right versus what was easy. It wasn't out of punitive measures. I didn't want him, I wasn't doing it to punish him. I did it out of love. I wanted to love and support his victims and let them know they had a voice and a platform of support. And at the same time, I wanted him to put right the things that he'd done wrong so that he could move forward with his life himself. He wouldn't have had the courage to do it instinctively himself. So I gave him the painful nudge to facilitate that. That was a horrible, horrible experience that dragged on for a number of years. And I could go into all sorts of details around that story in and of itself, but it forced me to really look inward to identify what do I stand for? How much are my values important to me? We all have certain standards that we live by, codes of conduct, ethics, and what have you, integrity, and all of these different virtues, many of them which I reference in my book. But how seriously committed are we to them? In moments like that, we really get tested. And so I found myself on the other side of the world for a long time with no one and nothing else. At one point, I had gone to university. I was studying graphic design. And in the course of 1 month, this is what happened for me. We had my university came to me and said, Ben, we're terribly sorry. You're an overseas student. You're a citizen of the United Kingdom, but you're not a resident because you haven't lived here for the last 3 years. So yes, you were born here. Yes, you got a British birth certificate, a British passport, but you've been in New Zealand the last 3 years. So you're not a resident. That means you're an overseas student. You're not entitled to government grants or loans or any assistance for your education. So you either pay it all up front as an overseas student or you leave. I had no means. I had a part-time job. I'm living away from all of my family. So I had to leave university. I couldn't complete it. That devastated me because I was loving my course. This is my chance to develop my future. In that same month, my father went to prison. That was the month that he got sentenced, and I had to drive him there myself. And he didn't manage that process honorably either. He had a window of time to put his affairs in order. He didn't, which meant I had to tell my little brothers myself that he was going to jail. No one else told them. They just left it up to me. He didn't tell his mum. He moved his mother in with him, left her homeless. I had to sort that out and tell her myself and sort that out. And then on top of that, my stepsister passed away. And then my girlfriend finished with me, all in the space of 4 weeks. And I was left on the other side of the planet from everyone that I was close to with nothing. And in that time frame, you've got to figure out what you're doing. Now, I had an experience earlier on, which I considered a spiritual experience, inspiration. You could put it into the context of inspiration, whatever language you want to choose, where I was like, I felt strongly impressed that my future was to remain in the UK. This was before the crises. The crises. I was to stay there and that my future would be better if I did. So I stuck true to that inspiration and I didn't return home. I didn't have the means and I didn't even think to ask my mum if she could fly me home. I don't know why. The thought never occurred to me to ask. I just was dependent on myself. So that really informed the book because, why do I share that story in so much detail? Is because coming out the other side of all of that crisis, all of that pain, and all of that real intense demand on me to respond, to act, and to do something right in the face of suffering, it bore as a consequence an overwhelming determination like I said, to do what is right, not what is easy. And as a consequence of that, when I was moved into, my career took off and opportunities developed within that space, I found that the virtues that that suffering had provided for me informed my experience and insights as a corporate leader. And then when crisis hit in the workplace, I learned to do what was right, not what was easy, to face it head on, not to look away. I had a blood test the other day, and this is what I did. It was going into this, I went like that, and I looked away. That's what we do when needles go in our arm. I'm not sure about you, but I kind of go, oh, I don't like it. But when we experience pain, that's what we tend to do, isn't it? We look away. But in many instances, if we want to confront it head on, do what's right, evolve, grow from it, and be strengthened by it, we need to look into it. We need to face it head on. So the book was really, taking some of the lessons from those experiences and some others, which I talk about, which I consider quite vulnerably in the book, and talk about what are the virtues that we can develop as a consequence, or perhaps in response to adversity, because adversity in all its shapes and forms will come to every one of us. And we all know, as we get together on this call today, we've all experienced it. It would be foolish of anyone. I couldn't imagine anyone. I've been at a number of meetings around the world, and I've asked the audiences, by show of hand, how many of you have found that life has turned out exactly as you hoped or as you expected? No one has ever put their hand up. Not a single person. It doesn't ever work out the way we planned. So, there's this saying, isn't there? Time heals all wounds, but it also wounds all heals. Yeah. Each of us come to this world and get, some type of experience, but I think there's wisdom that we can get from it. And the objective of this self-empowerment method or approach is not just to show us the attributes or virtues that we can use to get through suffering or to get through adversity, but to be transformed by it. Maybe within the ashes of this adversity that we're experiencing, maybe there is, our life's mission hidden amongst it. Yeah, we often expect to climb to the top of the mountain and it's there shining brightly, or it's on the podium where we're being crowned in some glorious way in front of all to see. But often our life's mission or purpose might be found in the ashes of suffering or adversity or struggle. And if we can have the humility to humbly accept that during some space that was unexpected and unprepared for, my life's mission was going to be discovered, and I can hold on to that and move forward, then we can touch a lot of lives for good. And that was my commitment in writing the book was, I've experienced a lot of hardship personally in my life.
Ben, let's, at 22, you got to know something inside you said, I have to speak my word. I have to come from integrity because that's all I have. That's who I am. And and that was beautiful because not everybody knows that, or especially with a parent figure, maybe that 8 years gave you that opportunity to be able to stand alongside it and go, I can't partner with that. I need to be who I am because all we have is our word. All we have is our, our word, our wand, right? Who we say are, what we do. So that's the beauty of it. And now with your virtues, you've got 7 virtues that you have culminated out of this, which is beautiful. And I think everybody should get the book, buy the book on Amazon, bestseller. And it's also on Audible, which I found out. But no, so of those virtues and things of how it allowed you to become the person that you are in those monumental little tiny microscopic choices were insurmountable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Kim and I have a little saying that is framed on our bedroom wall. And it says, no one knows how strong they are until being strong is the only choice they have.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that was one of the moments for me where, okay, you've got choices here that carry big consequences. And how are you going to respond? And one of the lessons that I learned was, in order to make a good choice and to have good judgment, there's so many people that struggle with making great choices in life. And I found a simple formula in that process. And that was to remove your own personal agenda. Take yourself out of the equation. Yeah, and when you take your own self-interest out of the equation, then what is the right thing to do? So often people skewer what is perceived to be right because they feed into the decision-making process their own self-interest. Well, I can't do this because look at how it affects me. Maybe we need to ask, what do I have to do with that? Yeah, what is right? And that was an extreme example, but through the extremity, the lesson became all the more clearer. But one of the virtues that I talk about in the book is called willful surrender. And the reason I find that so interesting, and it's perhaps an unusual virtue at first glance, only because it's misunderstood. Because people, when you use the term surrender, people will go, oh, that sounds like giving up or giving in. Yeah. But what I mean in this context, when we talk about willful surrender, is to let go of the illusions that we hold onto about ourselves, our circumstances, or our future. Yeah. And when I can have the courage, and it's a bold step, to willfully surrender the illusions that I have about myself. Yeah. And then accept my circumstances for what they are. Yeah. Then we can move forward. Too many people will spend a lot of time invested in beliefs that are not true because they don't like the consequences or the alternatives. Yeah. I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she had some struggles with school. And I explained to her, I said, look, in order for us to respond well to this, to help you best, Abby, we need to differentiate something. Is this a legitimate problem that you're facing? Or is it a collection of incorrect beliefs that you hold about yourself that you are choosing to hold on to? There is a difference. If this is a problem, we need to resolve it, sort it out. But if you've got incorrect beliefs about yourself in this situation, if I nurture that and feed it and reassure you that this is true, I'm doing you a great disservice. What's the difference? Which is it? Is it a problem? Or do you have some misaligned beliefs? She had some misaligned beliefs, and fortunately we got them resolved pretty quickly, and she's moving forward now, which is great. But we need to understand the difference. Yeah. Otherwise, they're pivot points that can take us in the wrong direction very fast. So yeah, that's something that amongst all of them, I think is really critical for us to understand. As I look at my business in Nikan, as I look at my life, as I look at where I want to be, what I want to accomplish, are there some incorrect beliefs that I'm holding on to that I need to be willing to surrender and let go of so that I can more confidently face my future with faith? I can't face the future with faith if I'm holding on to incorrect beliefs. Belief beneath the surface, there's going to be turmoil, there's going to be inner conflict, because somewhere inside my heart is going to be saying, you're fooling yourself, right? Yeah, it's going to be saying that. We're going to feel it. So if we can confront it and do something about that, we then liberate our minds to focus on things that are now empowering. Yeah, even if it is, I used this metaphor once with a friend of mine who was struggling. He had some mental health issues, and he was really finding it hard. And I said, look, I haven't been in a wheelchair, but let me use a metaphor of a wheelchair. Because I also have a friend that is in one. Yeah. I said, I would imagine if I'd been living fully abled throughout my life, and then I had an accident or something happened and I was in a wheelchair, maybe at first I may resent that wheelchair. Yeah, because it symbolizes to me my lack of ability, my disability, my dependence on others or something else versus myself. Maybe I would see it. If I'm sat on my couch and my chair is over there, I might look at it and hate it for a time. Yeah. Maybe if I'm in the house by myself, I might hurt myself as I try to get about without the use of it in a desperate attempt to reject it. I might want to throw it across the room in a fit of anger at some point in that journey of acceptance. I said, but eventually I'm going to reach a point where the pain of the problem becomes greater than the pain of the solution, and I need to accept its reality, my need for it. Yeah. Then something changes. I then get into the chair, I accept it. But then something happens here and here. When I surrender my false beliefs about it, surrender my illusions, I start to see that this chair is actually a tool for me that empowers me. It enables me. It's no longer a symbol of my disability. It is now a symbol of my ability. Because when I get in it, when I've embraced it, I can now move about more freely than by myself. Yeah, and that's what willful surrender is all about. It's metaphorically accepting the chairs that we have in our lives that are not symbols of disability or suffering or pain, but actually maybe if we accept them, they become vehicles for enabling and powerful tools for us to move forward. And if we can connect that way to the pain or the struggles or the challenges that we face, then we might find there is opportunity there to become and to do something different.
Wow. Beautiful. I just love how that all came together. That is amazing because it's a surrender, but it's an acceptance. And so it's a twofold in that.
Mm.
I'm going to wrap up this recording and I just want to say, you got to get the book. You got to get the Empowerment Paradox with BenWoodward here on Amazon. And I'm just so grateful to have you. And thank you so much for today.